We had a press conference, or I'm sorry, an interview with Joe Biden. It was 2 days ago with this diversity through the Latin American community. And we pulled some clips already. We already laughed about Joe Biden. Remember, he told that reporter he was a junkie and said he was on cocaine, yada, yada, yada. Well, there was this other clip that started making the rounds yesterday afternoon. And this clip isn't so much funny as it is really offensive to African-American voters. There's a Latino woman that's interviewing him about the Cuban crisis and how Cubans are being deported. And Joe Biden has talked about, the deportations that Donald Trump has vowed to continue with because these people are here illegally. She's asking Joe Biden, will you reverse them? Will you stop deporting people, especially Cuban immigrants here in the United States of America? And in answering her question about Cuba, he takes the opportunity to slap down the African-American community. Nobody's really sure why, but this is what he said.
What you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community.
What you all know, meaning what you Latinos know, that not everybody else knows, but I know because I'm Joe Biden and I'm very socially connected to all kinds of minority groups because I'm a Democrat. So automatically minority groups love me. What you guys know that nobody else knows is that unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, you're very diverse. Joe Biden is clearly letting his racist flag fly. And I think he's doing it unintentionally. In fact, Joe Biden's mental state may be a blessing in disguise here. Here's why. Joe Biden, he hasn't forgotten what he feels and believes deep in his heart. He hasn't forgotten his prejudices. He hasn't forgotten how his condescending viewpoints towards minority groups and African Americans. He still remembers how much he looks down on the poor and how much better he thinks he is than anyone else. I mean, that's never changed. He thinks anyone who isn't like him, meaning rich, white, Washington crony, is less of a person. He hasn't changed that. That is his core. That will always be. But what has changed, what his advanced age and his questionable mental state has done is it's removed the filter that he had. He hasn't forgotten who he is. He's just forgotten that he's supposed to hide who he is. You know, the protective cognitive barrier that kept the real Joe Biden safe and hidden away from the voters in Delaware and around the rest of the country, that's been washed away by his advanced age. And I think it's a blessing in disguise. And I think it's what's going to save this country from socialism in the end. I think Joe Biden's cognitive issues are what's going to save this country from socialism. I mean, these remarks that Joe Biden made about African Americans, they're exceptionally offensive, not just racist or offensive, but exceptionally offensive for several reasons. Primarily, in trying to build them up or in trying to appeal to them, he tore down an entire other minority group. He's trying to praise Latinos, and he's insulting African Americans to do so. Listen again. Here, I'll play it for you again. Listen very carefully to what he said.
Unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community.
He could have deleted the whole first part of that. It was completely unnecessary. His slap to black voters, completely unnecessary. He could have just said the Latino community is incredibly diverse, but he didn't say that. He started with, unlike the African-American community, the Latino community is diverse. It was completely unnecessary. Black voters put Joe Biden on the ticket. If it weren't for black voters, he'd be nowhere. He would have been out of this race months ago. And what about the notable exceptions line? How insulting is that? What he's basically saying is, the black community is not diverse at all. There are a few black people who show as much diversity as the Latino community, but not many. They're few and far between. You know what I want to know? You know what I would ask? I'd ask who they are. Is it Barack Obama? Is it Oprah? Is it James Clyburn, who saved your ass from being rocketed into political obscurity in South Carolina a couple months ago? Plus, and probably the worst thing about this comment is he made it behind the black community's back. He was talking to an NPR reporter, a Latino woman. He didn't expect it to get back to the black voters. He didn't expect African Americans were listening to this. I mean, it's not shocking. Last time he did a live stream, 19 people were watching, so he was probably shocked that anyone was listening. But look, what you say about someone when you don't think they can hear you is how you really feel about them.